Okay, we're picking up. I'm going to try to pick up roughly where we left off. I'm going to give you a little bit of a review, but my aim today is to get us through falling and just to remind you about what the falling of Dasein is, and then get to death and anxiety, and then death. And after we cover that, then so I might shoot two videos tonight. We'll just see how quickly I can get through this. And then I'm going to put up a bunch of quizzes for you guys so that this weekend I'm also going to post some stuff on Spinoza maybe tomorrow night and start quizzes on that as well. So you're just going to have some work to do. So the quizzes will not be made available. I'm going to try to figure out how D2L works on this, and you will have to have watched these videos before you will be able to take the quizzes. That way I can ensure that you're not trying to get away without doing some of the hard work. And you still need to read, but I'm trying to point out to you where we're going. So today we're going to focus on, later on, sections 40, probably, we might touch a little bit on 41, but mostly then you're going to jump from 40 all the way to 46 and being towards death. And I'm also going to talk a bit with you backwards still about 38, 36, 35, just getting some of this idle talk, the Befindlichkeit in mood, reminding you of it, 36 and 37. These are the elements that lead us to being fallen. And then falling, of course, has three basic elements within it, which is that Dasein, it falls because the they is tempting, it's tranquilizing, and it's alienating. So let's back up just a minute though and do some quick review. So remember, this book is about being, but in specific, we're going to talk about Dasein and Dasein's way of being. Dasein has priority because in its very way of being, its being is an issue for it, right? Dasein is constantly worried about what sort of thing it is. And that happens to be us, you and I. We are always aware of and concerned about what sort of thing I am, right? And as a result of that, or some of what makes that possible is that we question being, and we question the being of other things, right? So I not only worry about what sort of thing I am, I worry about what being is, that's ontology, and I worry about what other things are, that's ontological, right? That's what Dasein is, and that's science. Now, in our worrying about what sort of thing I am, we have being in the world as our way of being, and existence is how we are. We aren't just present at hand. We also exist as something that has existence as its way of being. And therefore, categories don't apply to Dasein the way that they apply to things that are present at hand. Now, among things that are present at hand, usually they don't show up as merely present at hand. They show up as things that are ready to hand. And things that are ready to hand have their in order to. And that in order to is made by an assignment. And that assignment doesn't happen first and then Dasein uses it. Rather, the assignment of an in order to has its in order to because Dasein cares. And the reason that Dasein cares is because we see things circumspectly. And our circumspection comes because we are, and it is subservient to, our being with others. We don't just make things for the sake of making things. We make things in our relationship to being in the world with others. Now, when we use things, they are merely ready to hand. We don't think of them as being present at hand. Their readiness to hand is simply in their use. We use them in order to. And we give this assignment, and it matters because we are being alongside other Dasein. And that being alongside others has a different kind of sight. Rather than circumspection, it has solicitude. And solicitude is being aware of and being alongside others, other Dasein, right? Who have a world just like we have our own world. And facticity is that we know that our destiny is wrapped up in the things in the world around us, including the being alongside others. Now, we can be alongside others in two fundamental ways, or there are two really kind of relations that we have with others. Others can leap in for us and take our care away from us, fix it up, give it back to us as a ready-made project. That's called leaping in. We can also leap ahead. And when we leap ahead, what we do is kind of take care, but we just like borrow it for a little while, clear out space so that Dasein, we can give it back to Dasein, and Dasein can, for the first time, Heidegger says, for the first time, be able to take care for itself, own it, right? Now, care is all you are. The world is the world of what matters, or significance. And things that are ready to hand have their significance. They matter in order to get other things done as we live alongside others. And when things break down, they become conspicuous, they become obtrusive, they become obstinate. What's happening there is we feel a little bit of what Heidegger's going to call now anxiety. And anxiety is deeply tied to something like that mood we already talked about called fear. Now, when things break down and they become conspicuous, it changes our Befindlichkeit, our so-findingness. Right? So going back to the story about the guy who was supposed to be building a wall and the hammer broke and he was going to get fired, his Befindlichkeit turned on a dime, right? He was in the attitude or in the Befindlichkeit, in the so-findingness, in the mood of hurrying, getting something done. It matters that things work like they're supposed to. Hammer's supposed to hammer, supposed to hammer, supposed to hammer. And it doesn't. Wah! What is this thing? It becomes conspicuous. But most of all, what's happening is the world is becoming anxious. That is, he in his Befindlichkeit has anxiety as his way of being. And this is because he feels the world bubbling up. And the ready to hand is becoming something merely present at hand. And beneath that present at hand, the present at hand is just announcing what is behind it is the world. And what is the world? It's nothing but care. Nothing matters if Dasein doesn't care, right? So being alongside others structures that care. Now, there are two fundamental questions for Dasein. Dasein means being there, right? Da is there, and Sein is being. Now, who is the Sein? Who is the being that is there? And the answer is care, right? But what do we care about? Where does that care come from? What is the cause or the structure of our care? And the answer is they. They are what give things meaning. What makes things matter is them. So who is it that is there? They are. When I am there, who has taken over my care, structured how things are supposed to matter and why they matter, and given it back to me? They have. So when I accept it as they've given it to me, who am I? I am the they, right? So to the question, who is Dasein? The answer is they. It is the they. Now, Dasein doesn't have to be the they. The alternative to being the they, which is the inauthentic Dasein, is to be authentic, to be myself, which is to take responsibility or ownership for my care. It's my care. I care about these things because I've chosen them. But you can't just do that freely. You can't just say nothing matters. Like, take those kids, the goth kids, who are like, I don't want to be like anybody else. Yeah, well, guess what? You are. We all are. The they is not that simple to just turn away from. When you turn away from it, you're still a part of it. So being authentic is not as simple as simply turning away from the they. But again, we're going to get to that when we talk about death. But to the question, who is the they? Now, where or da, there, that is Befindlichkeit. There does not refer to a place. It is a Befindlichkeit, a mood. You are your mood. You are your there. They are always them. They make things matter. We accept that they make things matter. But we experience that mattering in a mood, which is our own. No one can carry your Befindlichkeit for you. No one can leap in, take your Befindlichkeit away from you, and then give it back to you. That is and must always be yours. The problem with that is you don't know how to master your Befindlichkeit. It comes and it goes. It assails us, says Heidegger, right? It assails us. It doesn't assail us from the outside or the inside. It just comes over us, and we find ourselves in a mood, and we don't know how we got in the mood, and we don't know how to get out of the mood, and the mood is just what we are. It's our there. And if you think about your mood structures how you care about things. If you just don't feel like school, tired of it, just don't want to do it. Say your girlfriend or boyfriend broke up with you, and now you're supposed to study, and like, this stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Right? Befindlichkeit has a deep impact on what matters, how it matters. Now remember, leaping ahead requires two basic things. It requires considerateness, and it requires forbearance. People who do not exercise considerateness and forbearance are leaping in. People who do exercise considerateness and forbearance, at least potentially, they might be able to leap ahead. Why? Because they're not forcing you. They're allowing, they're letting be. Considerateness, forbearance, beautiful concepts. Heidegger has very little to say about them. Now, leaping ahead here is what we're trying to do, which means that we want to show you what you really are, says Heidegger. And that means you are your Befindlichkeit. Now, Befindlichkeit is your there, and it is your world, and it shapes how things matter in relationship to the being of the they. So, you have, if you want to be authentic, to learn how to master your moods. And if you remember, what Heidegger says is, Dasein can, should, and must, through knowledge and will, become master of its moods. But how do we do that? Well, Heidegger's not really that interested in telling us how to master our moods. He just does you should, then he's going to get on with life. Fortunately, he's not the only person who thought about these things like emotions and moods and how we find ourselves and our Befindlichkeit and how things in the external world sort of impact our internal worlds and our internal worlds and our external blah, blah, blah. Okay, so Spinoza is going to help us to think about how to master our mood some, but Heidegger at least introduces us to it, and he's going to show us the depth and enormity of the problem, the they. All right. So we find ourselves in a Befindlichkeit. We have to become a master of our moods, but we do this in the middle of the game already going on. By the time we grow up and are old enough, mature enough to start taking ownership for our lives are long on the way to going. Our Befindlichkeits have already been developed. Our states of being, our states of mind, they just kind of have a life of their own, so we have to figure it out in the process of living. That is, our existence precedes our essence, says Heidegger. That is, we're already living before we figure out what we are. So, that already living is a world of falling. And by falling, what Heidegger means is we are constantly engaging in running away from taking responsibility for our lives in three primary ways: idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity. I know this whole video is just going to be a review as I'm looking at how much time I'm taking. Idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity are the ways in which we fall as being the they. Idle talk, we can talk about everything and we don't have to be responsible for anything that we say. Curiosity, we just move from one thing to another, from the novel to the novel to the novel. Listen, I know some of you students this applies to, so I'm going to say it really bluntly. If you're sitting on your phone all the time looking for something new on Instagram and Pinterest and saying, ooh, that's great, and then 3 seconds later, ooh, that's great, and then 3 seconds later, or you're looking on Facebook and seeing what your friends are doing here and there and there and there and posting pictures of your food, that is curiosity, and it's the they, and it's falling, according to Heidegger. There is no authenticity in it at all. Third, so there's idle talk, ambiguity, and idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity. And ambiguity is where nobody is really saying anything, but we're saying everything, right? And idle talk and curiosity completely fall into ambiguity. And these three things do this to us. They make us fall. We are the they. But why do we do it? Because it's easy. Because it gives us a ready-made, meaningful life. Therefore, it's tempting. It's desirable. It pulls us in. Draws us. It's tempting. It's also tranquilizing. Why do we want to be tranquilized? Well, I'll tell you why. It's the same reason why, the people in the myth of that I told you about in Plato, where after they choose their lives and they remember all the stuff they've been through and they're marched through the plains and they're thirsty and then they can drink from the river of Lethe and they get to forget. It's tranquilizing. Look, it's why after a hard day of work, you want to come and just turn the TV on and escape. That's tranquilizing. So hard to face and be an owner of your life. So much easier. And that's why it's tempting and it's tranquilizing, because it makes us sleepy. We just get to escape and rest. That's all we want, because we're lazy bums. Dasein has a tendency to take things easy, and the they accommodates that. And when we're feeling tired and we're worn out and we're run down, all we want is a tranquilizer. So we take it, like Michael Jackson, till we die. Sad. It's tempting. It's tranquilizing. What do I do with my time? Oh, I've got free time. Let me get on Facebook a chat. Waste my time looking at things. Curiosity. Idle talk. Somebody saying something I don't want to hear. Well, they say blah, 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 and I shut them down. But I don't ever have to be responsible, and I don't actually have to know what I'm talking about. That's idle talk, and it's ambiguity, and it's curiosity, and it's tempting, and it's tranquilizing, and it makes us feel like we're something, and we're getting along in life, and everything's going to be okay. But the problem is, we continue to grow farther and farther and farther away from ourselves, and that is alienation. We are the closest thing that we can ever be to ourselves, and we know ourselves least of all because we're too engaged in idle talk and curiosity, and we have too many things that distract us and allow us to float superficially through life without having to take ownership for ourselves. We never become the camel, according to Nietzsche, where we load up our lives and we take responsibility for it. Why don't we? Because we don't want to, because it's dang hard work. Harder work than anything you've ever done before. I don't care if you've run marathons, swam across the English Channel, whatever you've done. If you have not faced and taken ownership for who you are, it's the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. It's so hard, it requires so much energy that it's tempting to just be tranquilized by them and distracted, and we don't have to deal with it. Therefore, we're alienated. We never really get to know ourselves. And that is falling, says Heidegger. That is the falling of Dasein. And we fall into and through our Befindlichkeit, our moods. And they swing us around, and we just flow through them and let them dominate us, because we don't become masters of our moods. We can't become masters of our moods because we're too busy in idle talk, curiosity, and ambiguity, and therefore we never master moods. All right, I'm done. I feel like I've been on a total soapbox, and I'm going to get to now, we're going to jump on to section 40 for the next video.